All right, let me just make sure everything's working properly. All right, we're good. So we got UFC Edmonton down to a oops, don't want to show those. Or I think I'm only showing my DraftKings tab. Yes, okay. We're good. So we have 13 fights now. Derek Lewis versus Denise fight fell out, and as you guys know, that was a key fight. Extremely strong inside the distance metrics for both fighters, and now it's gone. So I first want to talk about how I think this affects the ownerships. I think that this Machado versus Ribeiro fight is going to get a huge boost. It's another heavyweight fight with similar finishing metrics as the Lewis fight, and now that that's not there, I think people are going to navigate to that. I think the metrics and optimizers are going to navigate to that. So that's the first obvious option to me that's going to get a big boost. Then the Sergey Cidi versus Garrett Armfield. That fight is in the exact salary range as the Denise and Lewis fight. So they should get a small boost. I don't think as big as the Machado fight, but they'll get a bit more love. And then lastly, I do believe the Nascimento Romanov, the other heavyweight fight, that's a little bit lower in that mid range, 8.3K for Nascimento, 7.9 for Romanov. That will get a bit more love too. So those are the big three fights I think it'll affect. Unfortunately, I don't have up to date ownerships as of this moment, but I have a good guess as to what will happen. And so with 13 fights, right, it means the 5 rounders are going to be a bit tougher to fade. But when you have that Derek Lewis fight with the 110 point upside with a first round KO from either side, it made it a lot more possible to fade the 5 rounders. I think it's just it's quite a bit more difficult now that the Lewis fight is not there. So that's something to keep in mind. As far as overall ownerships, I'm seeing. I think this Mike Malott ownership is really fishy on SaberSim. They have him sub 30%. I would be very surprised if Mike Malott. I think he's going to be at least 35 plus. So if you're using SaberSim, I would say, be cautious of that. I think that Mike Malott ownership is pretty fishy. Brandon Moreno and Aaron Blanchfield look to be the 2 highest owned fighters on the slate. That makes sense. They're the 2 favored fighters in the 5 rounders. And then as far as the other 2, Rose and Amir Albazi, both of them are still getting some love too. Around 30-ish% for both of those 2. Also makes sense. For me personally, how I decided to handle the main and co-main, I really hedged my positions. I have a little bit more Blanchfield than Rose, and then I have a little bit more Albazi than Moreno. And I'm playing a lot of single entry stuff this week, single entry higher buy-in kind of stuff, and I'm just really diversified with these 2 5 rounders there. And then the Romanov Nascimento fight, I did take a larger position on Romanov just because the line value is hard to ignore. He's now a minus 140 at 7.9K with the potential ceiling that he has. So I definitely wanted to get more Romanov than Nascimento, given that. And then for one of my really low risk single entry contests, I did play Zahab. Okay, yeah. So this just changed even more. Zahabi's now minus 180. If you're playing cash, Zahabi's just like a free. Like you have to play Zahabi in cash. Minus 180 at 7.9K is huge. Does it affect the GPP MME landscape? Probably it does. I mean, minus 180 is a very healthy line for a 7.9K fighter. The problem is he doesn't have the ceiling you're looking for, but in all of your single entry stuff, 3 max, I think that you actually have to pay attention to Sahabi and have a good amount of exposure to him because that line value is too good to pass up. And then for the I still think Stoltzfus and Marc-Andre Barriault is one of my favorite fights to target. Barriault, he has the volume, the pace. Stoltzfus, he has the questionable chin, and he also can slow down later in fights as well. And then Stoltzfus has the early grappling path. He has good takedowns, good submission, and jiu-jitsu ability. I think that fight looks like a very good fight to target, and it's not really getting that much ownership. I'm seeing like less than 50% cumulative, and I think that this fight looks pretty good for the stylistics and the metrics that it provides. So that's still one of my favorite fights to target. Let me check if there's any questions real quick. Oh, Brandon. Brandon. The thing is, I do feel like he should win this fight. It worries me that his last performance was, not a good look. He's been in a lot of fights. He's fought Figueiredo 4 times. He's been at the top of the sport. To me, it just seems like, not that he doesn't want to be here anymore, but it does seem like he's done it all, right? Where Amir Albazi, he still has everything to go. He's still never won a number 1 contender fight. He's still never fought for a title. I just think he has a little bit more motivation. Now, will that matter in terms of the fight? At the end of the day, maybe, maybe not, right? At the end of the day, they're going to fight, and Brandon Moreno could just be that much better than him. But I do think, as far as the narratives go, I do think there's some validity to this career trajectory narrative between Albazi and Moreno. For me personally, I do put some stock into that. But yeah, I understand why Moreno's the favorite. He's the better body of work, the better overall martial artist. His scrambles are insane. Good boxing, but it just worries me. His mindset is a bit worrying. But that's pretty much it for that fight. Anything? Cody Gibson's showing a little bit of line value. I don't really see a ceiling for him. Minus 250. I mean, that's pretty strong for a 8.7K fighter. But the problem is his ITD line is plus 220. It's really not good. Does he have takedown upside? Maybe, maybe not. So probably another play that you might want to get to in cash games and low risk contests, but pretty iffy for the MME kind of stuff. These 2 other spend ups besides Malat, Jasmine and Yusuf Salal, I think they both look pretty weak on paper, right? They both have some takedown upside, but they don't really have the finishing metrics that you want when you're spending up there, especially when you can get to Mike Malat, who has the best ITD line on the slate, takedown upside, knockout upside, all that stuff. So definitely Mike Malat is the preferred spend up. He's going to be higher owned, but for very good reason. Anything else to? I guess Trevin Giles is more in play here because you will get leverage against Mike Malat. Now that there's 13 fights, I do think Malat's ownership will be high enough. I think it'll get near 40. Mike Malat, I really do. I think he'll be high 30s, maybe nearing 40. And if that's the case, and you can get Trevin Giles at 9% ownership or whatever he'll be, it's worth taking a flyer on if you are playing 150. Definitely worth taking a shot on. Let me check if there's any more questions real quick. Nothing yet. Okay. In case, I know PhD usually likes to tune in here, so I'll talk about his portfolio in case he checks in after the stream's over. So Mike Malat is highest owned fighter. Perfectly good play. The best finishing line on the slate, like I've been saying. That makes sense. Aaron Blanchfield, yeah, like probably the best play overall on the slate. Highest ceiling, 5 rounds to work with, wrestling upside. That makes a lot of sense too. Romanov, yeah, like we said, you don't really know what to expect with him, but you can get a 120 out of him. You're looking good. And I think he's definitely someone to take shots on this week. Brandon Moreno, yeah, makes sense. Sergey Cedi, I forgot to talk about that. So Cedi actually, I don't know if I'm being biased here, but I watched Cedi's last fight. It was my first time ever watching him. and it was very competitive versus I'm forgetting his opponent's name. But anyways, very competitive fight, back and forth. But I just remember CD was getting cut up. He was getting hit with big shots. He never quit. His striking looked very slick. It was just he got overpowered a bit by I have to check who his opponent was. It's annoying me. Who did he fight? It was Ramon Tavares. Yeah, so Ramon Tavares had a ton of power, but CD was just way more technical. He was staying in the fight the entire time. It was an absolute dogfight. And I liked what I saw. I might be being biased, but I liked what I saw. I think he's an absolute dog. And at low ownership, I like being over the field on CD. So I agree with that. It looks like PhD is about double the field on him. Looks good to me. Nascimento, yeah, we talked about that fight. Should be a good fight overall, especially with the Lewis fight being canceled. Then he's got Miro Bazzi, Jasmine. Yeah, everything else, Stoltzfus, good amount of Stoltzfus. The only thing I would maybe disagree with is 5% Marc Andre. So listen, the median outcome for Marc Andre here is he wins a high volume striking decision. 100, 120 strikes. That's not going to be good enough because we all know strikers just don't score well, even in a quote unquote high volume 3-round fight. So that is there, okay? But what about the outcomes where he has that same volume but finds a round 2, round 3 finish? I think that breaks the slate. If he puts up his volume, that 100 strikes with a knockdown, round 2, round 3 finish, I think the upside is there. I think it's there. So I am personally a bit higher than 5%. I do think it's actually a very sneaky spot this week and something I'm going to take shots on. Arian De Silva, 10%. Perfect. I think that's absolutely perfect. I think De Silva is going to, or Lipsky, or whatever her name is now. Jasmine will be getting takedowns, and De Silva has a good jiu-jitsu game. So she'll be live to at least attempt submissions, I believe. And what are the chances? What are the chances of her getting a submission? Probably around 10-15%. So I think that's perfectly reasonable amount of her. Besides that, Jourdain. What about Victor Henry? Yeah, I like being a little bit higher on Jourdain than Victor Henry. They're both in the mid range. The upside doesn't look tremendous, but I think the overall lineups go together pretty well when you can get that fight in there. Besides that, yeah, everything else looks pretty. Or hold on, yeah, I mean everything else looks pretty good to me. For as far as PhD's exposures here. Let me see if we have any questions here. Nothing right now. I think that'll be it. Pretty short live stream this week. I'm trying to think, is there anything else to talk about? Not really. I think I've said everything I have to say. So if you have any extra questions, leave a comment or message me in the Discord. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.